Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have another take on a moon zoo, only this time it has been highly refined. And it was been refined by a player named WhatAmI. You guys may know them from the competitive Legends of Runeterra scene. They have started streaming some Snap, but I think primarily Legends of Runeterra, and they used this in a recent tournament, and they came in the top 8 in the wave of Thanos and other highly competitive decks. This one really looks to do what the original Moon Zoo did really well and kind of refine it for consistency's sake. So the original used an Ant-Man to really lean into the Flood. This one uses Iceman as a way to kind of give you an early game priority drop that can offer a lot of disruption to the opponent. It is unseen disruption, but it could absolutely be critical in if they win or lose that match. And then something that I've noticed from WhatAmI on the ladder is he very frequently leans into the Quinjet and Sentinel value. It is often overlooked how much value a Sentinel that can be played for 1 cost every single turn is. If you play it 4 times, that is 12 power that you have on the board that, unless they hit an incredible high roll or unless you don't get anything else, is a huge amount of kind of supporting power that, when coming at 3 at a time, doesn't feel fantastic, but it does what this deck wants to do, and it helps make you arrow-proof. Not only is it helping make you arrow-proof, it helps pad the stats in all of those lanes so that you can more efficiently drop your last turn big bombs to swing locations in your favor. It's no longer 15 to overcome, but if you have 2 Sentinels, it's now 9. You could do a She-Hulk and a Demon to overcome it, rather than having to push both of your She-Hulks into that lane to overcome that power, and then you're trying to find a way to drop your lower power and find a way to win in those other lanes. It just offers a lot of flexibility, and it's a really smart add for the list. And then in addition to that, we have Maria Hill. Maria Hill makes so much sense that I had looked at it originally in my tweaking with the deck, and I discarded it pretty early just because she wasn't a Series 3 card. But whenever you stop and think about it, she gives you a 1 cost card. Quinjet makes that a 0 cost card, so whether you double down on it, whether you double down on your Maria Hill into a turn 5 double Maria Hill drop, and then you have 2 free 1 cost cards that you can then throw onto the board along with your Demons, your Titanias, your Sentinels, to just completely overpower and flood the board, where it makes it really hard for the opponent to react. And then we also have in the tech choice of the Shang-Chi and the Arrow. So this version cuts the Kazar, which sometimes would give you a win condition, but a lot of times was only about 5 or 6 power that it presented onto the board, and it almost felt like you needed Zabu to really lean in and do that well. Well, this version cuts the Zabu, and I didn't feel the sting of not having Zabu at all. Because we have some earlier 1 cost drops that we don't necessarily care if we play them out early, it makes it a little bit easier to manage our lower curved cards in our hand so that we can line up a particular Moon Girl double down so that we know exactly what we're doubling into, and we can almost pick and choose which cards we want multiples of. And then lastly, the Arrow. Arrow is just a phenomenal tech right now. It helps protect you against the steamroll that is Shuri, and it protects you from a couple of other really big plays. You can misdirect the opponent's last turn play, and it's really disruptive. It is one of those cards that almost feels critical in almost every deck, because some games it's going to come down to whether you have Arrow or not, and there's no other way that you'd be able to win it. So it feels like another really good add. You're not going to use Arrow every single game. You probably won't use her in most games, but the ones where she's needed, she will absolutely win you 4 and 8 cubes and can help position this deck into being competitive against a wider array of opponents. And so with the not so brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. During my testing, we've had about a 75% win rate with this list, and that is against Thanos, that is against Shuri, that is against Electro Ramps, that is against the entire spectrum of different decks that are very viable right now. We've been able to maintain between 70 and 75% win rate. And so with the not so brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, next up we have UR, and they are running a pulse list. And so the first location is Tinker's Workshop. So I think we're going to play Maria Hill. We're just going to go with the RNG piece here. It's one of those added in pieces that wasn't in the original Moon Zoo list, but I think is a pretty cool add. We also have the Hood, which will typically stay on our side of the board. And then Wakanda Embassy actually helps us out as well and gives us +2 power onto our cards. And so now we have She-Hulk, Titania, and Demon. If we can draw into our Moon Girl, then we will be able to duplicate several of our key cards and be able to get a decent amount of benefit. But since we don't draw into it here, I think we're going to skip. Next turn, we should be able to do She-Hulk and I think maybe Demon. And it really depends on what they play here. Okay, so the Space Stone and the Reality Stone, they don't do Time Stone, so we don't have to worry about ramping into a Leech this turn at least. I'm going to play Quinjet into Wakanda. After this turn, all the locations are going to shift. And so I'm actually going to play She-Hulk into mid. I'm going to just hope that it shifts into mid and will protect our She-Hulk. If not, it's okay. It's more of a kind of a Hail Mary. And so they rotate a Quinjet, interesting, into a Shang-Chi. So Shang-Chi is now on the board. We don't have to worry that She-Hulk is not protected. And then we also have initiative here, which is beautiful. Beautiful to have initiative against a Thanos list that is trying to actively rotate their cards. And so if they have a Leech, hopefully they don't, but if they do, we're going to get it stuck in the left lane. So I am fairly confident here. I'm confident enough that I would snap, but we're going to let this one play out. I think probably a Leech play, maybe a Devil Dino, maybe just rotating a couple of cards. Either way, we're going to be able to overcome it here. And so they played one in the left, one in right. Ooh, the Spider-Man. They were wanting to lock down and lock in the right lane. They also played a Quinjet as well. And so now this left lane has a little bit more space for them to have to overcome. We still have initiative, so our Shang-Chi's not great, but we do get the retreat. We have the even lead in all three lanes. Currently, Titania was going to be a little bit tough to use, depending on what we thought they were going to play and where. So it may have ended up being a Sunspot and a Shang-Chi and Soak, and just leaving the Titania onto the board, which does hurt, but having initiative and not being able to guarantee where it goes, and it potentially losing the game for us would hurt even more. We will take the 1 cube. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have the Odinson, and the first location is the Grand Central. We have our Quinjet. We have Sentinel, which is always a good duo. It lets us really spread power across the board. I'm actually going to start with our Iceman instead, though. Iceman is always really good at adding potential disruption, so maybe it hits a Shuri, and we just never know about it. But the fact that it could, and it could disrupt their game that much, is pretty impactful. It makes me want to make sure we prioritize it. I'm going to go ahead and play Sentinel over the Quinjet. Since we don't have another great one-drop that we want to use, I'm going to just prioritize the Sentinel instead. Now we can do Quinjet. We can do Quinjet and Sentinel again. That will make all of our Sentinels cost 1. If we do a Moon Girl double down, it's still going to be 1, but at least we can, it's an extra card we can flood. It makes us very, very arrow-proof, which is really one of the main priorities of this list, is not being able to be hit with an arrow, not being able to have our cards yanked across the board, plus 3 power, a couple of slots, 6 extra power in a lane, would very easily be substantial enough to give you an advantage, give you a lead, let you win one of the lanes. And so Sentinel is often overlooked, but WhatAmI seems to be one of those people that very consistently focuses on using that Sentinel because of that reoccurring value and how much it brings onto how much value it can potentially bring to the table. We do have our Moon Girl now, a turn too late. We have Moon Girl. I almost think that we She-Hulk, Sentinel, Grand Central will pull in here, and then we arrow into Fisk Tower on the last turn. Since Grand Central can pull into our She-Hulk anyways, I don't really want to skip here, and so we're going to just do that. They could have an arrow of their own, which would be tough. It'd be a tough break. Oh, so they have the Black Panther. Interesting. The Iron Man comes down in the left lane as well. Very interesting. So the Black Panther's big. Are they going with an Arnim Zola? Did they use a negative Shuri deck that just didn't quite hit? I'm going to assume that they do have maybe an Arnim Zola. we're going to play the Titania and then the Arrow. We're going to send Titania onto their side of the board. So if they play their Arnim Zola here, we're going to make it a 50-50 shot of whether it wins them the game or not. We're going to take it from a surefire where it wouldn't be worth staying in for one to a 50-50 where it's always worth gambling that extra 1 cube. The Titania, the Arrow, they do play into mid, so we're going to send the Titania. Oh, it doesn't quite hit. Unfortunately, the Titania doesn't hit where it needs to hit, and so we're still going to lose this one. But it was a risk that I would take every single time, because had they sent 5 to the left, 5 to the right, it would have won us the left and right lane and left the mid alone. And so it was a calculated risk, but it was one that I would take every single time for 1 extra cube. Had they snapped on the last turn and raised the stakes, it wouldn't have been worth it at that point. We would have retreated. But playing the odds, playing the statistics, that next time that exact situation comes up, it will work. But this time it doesn't. So let's go ahead and take our 2 cube loss and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Emote If You're A, and their title is Couple Cubes Short of a Rank. And so the first location is Wakandan Embassy. We also have our Moon Girl, so we're going to start with the Quinjet. Unfortunately, both of the cards that got the buff from the Wakandan Embassy are going to be played by the time we end up using our Moon Girl. Unless we get Project Pegasus and can end up using it now. Maybe we do this. This is going to give us 3. We double down on it. Next turn we play 2 3-powered sunspots, and then we can just kind of soak our way into... we can soak our way to the end of the game. We're also going to double down on the 1-cost card that Maria Hill gives us. And it's going to be blind. It could be really good, could be really bad. Misty Knight could be better, but it also could be worse. It's a free 2 power onto the board whenever we want to drop it. Reality Stone changes the middle location into Dark Dimension, so their other ones don't reveal. I am going to take advantage of that. We're going to go ahead and snap into it, assuming that it's bad for them. I just assume that that is not great for what they want, for what they're wanting. We're going to play the Sentinel into the right lane. That will bring it back to our hand. It'll be 1 cost. And I'm hoping that maybe they locked a couple of their stones there, which will lock a couple of their card draws, making it harder for them to really push where they need to. The Power Stone doesn't draw anything additional. The Soul Stone does, but it's still relatively low. I'm going to Shang-Chi in mid, and then we're going to Soak. Even if they were able to leech this turn, which they're not, it doesn't really hit anything fantastic for them. The Iceman, I think, is worth playing out into the open. Again, not fantastic for them. We're going to go ahead and Soak the Sunspots. Now, if they have a Killmonger, if this is the version of Thanos that runs a Killmonger, runs a Destruction Tool, runs Death, we're in for a rude awakening. But otherwise, very, very straightforward. I think this is a relatively safe and easy win. We're going to play Iceman. We're going to Soak with the other 2 in the left and the right lane. They do use Arrow, but that's okay. It doesn't hurt us all that much. For the last turn, we do have Initiative, which is never great. We can do our Titania in mid, though, because then it's the last card. Even if they play a card here, it doesn't have any space to bounce to. I think we're okay doing that. We're going to do Misty Knight, and Sentinel, and then we're going to Soak 4 more in the left lane. And so if they invest any more in the left lane, that's okay, because we have a pretty healthy lead in the middle and the right lane. They do end up retreating after snapping on the first turn of the game, and then the unfortunate Reality Stone absolutely makes that where we can just flood and bombard the board so that Arrow becomes less impactful, which was already on the board. But Arrow, Leech, all of those cards become much less impactful after that point. And so we're going to go ahead and take our 4 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Neo-Human, and they are not running Thanos. I'm going to go ahead and place the Iceman into the far right lane. There's a very small chance that the second location becomes Fisk Tower, and the Bifrost is actively very bad. It doesn't. It turns into Vormir, which is decent. We can push power there and not have to sacrifice a card. But every once in a while, the stars align and it becomes Fisk Tower. And so I never exactly... It could be Bar with no name as well. And so I don't really like to play into Bifrost until I know what that next location is. Luke's Bar is also pretty good for us. Let's go ahead and... We're going to play Quinjet. We're going to sacrifice our first Sentinel. The next one becomes 1 cost. We can play the Sentinel and then we can start flooding stuff here, so that on turn 4 it will push over into Luke's bar. I don't know exactly what they're running. They did skip with the Sunspot to absorb some energy. We'll see. They haven't sacrificed anything in Vormir, so we'll have to play multiple cards. I guess She-Hulk could do it. Maybe? I don't know. We're going to play Sentinel. That's all that we're going to play for now. We're going to let it push over. We will get She-Hulk reduced next turn, so even if we don't end up doing the double down, we can still push She-Hulk onto the board. And from there, we will see. Ooh, the Shuri is big. The Shuri is very, very big. I don't know if they have a way to play into Luke's bar or for Luke's bar, though. And since we have Arrow, since we have Shang-Chi, I think we're relatively okay. I'm going to play Maria Hill. I'm okay with playing it now because it's the same power as Sentinel. It's going to give us a free resource to play on the last turn. And so then we can do Shang-Chi, Titania, Sentinel, and the free resource. And it's the Misty Knight again. What are the chances? We have initiative. How certain are we that they're going to move their vision into Luke's bar? Like, how specific of a read do we have to know that? Titania is also one that's very, very iffy for us having initiative as often as we do with this list. Because we can spread power across the board, a lot of times we can grab initiative as a result. Titania becomes a read at that point, and I'm not good at reading. So how many cards do they play? If they move Vision out of this lane, and they play a Taskmaster, that's going to be 14 power. This is 3, 6, 8, 13 power. So a Taskmaster would not win here, but we'd win here and here, depending on where they move their Vision to. We're going with the Shang-Chi. That's a very specific vision specific move. I don't know. We're going to lock in moving Titania to their side of the board, because if they play one card here, it'll bounce back. If they play 2 cards, then we probably lost anyways. I don't know. The vision, we get the right vision read with the Shang-Chi. So we get that read. They also play 1 card, so that is 2 reads that we got. We're going to by playing our Titania not on the last card, we're going to send it their way, and they're going to inconsequentially send it back. So I think we're going to have all 3 locations locked down here, which is incredibly satisfying against the Vision play, against the She-Hulk, the Shuri, which doesn't look like they hit their high roll. But anytime I can beat a Shuri, I will surely take it. We're going to go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Wolo. The first location is the Lechugia. I'm going to go ahead and play Hood into the far right lane. We don't know. We don't know if that's going to be beneficial or not. The middle location is the Bifrost. I'm going to go ahead and play... We also get our Moon Girl. I'm going to go ahead and play our Sunspot. And then as long as we can kind of keep our cards relatively low, we could even play Sentinel so that we double down on whatever we draw next. It just really depends on what our next card draw is. But having the Moon Girl really helps elevate our potential high roll. So Morag, we can't play our first card there. That's not terrible. I think Maria Hill would be bad to duplicate here, because Maria Hill would bring us back to 5. Next turn we would draw into 6, and so we would only copy 2 cards, one being Sentinel, one being Titania. But by playing Sentinel, that will bring Sentinel back over here. And so whenever we do our Moon Girl, we're going to copy the Titania, the Demon, and the Maria Hill. They play a Sauron. And so Sauron's not one that you see all that often, but is fairly impactful whenever you do. I feel like I need to play Moon Girl into the Bifrost, because we will very likely need to draw into our Shang-Chi or She-Hulk to potentially overpower this Shuri that they're going to drop right here. And so this right lane is going to be fully capped out. The only way we can get additional power there is from the soak from Sunspot. And with the negative Hood being there, it's not a lot of benefit that we get there. They did Shuri. Let's go ahead and we're going to play Maria Hill. We're going to play our Sentinel. And then I'm going to play one of our demons onto the board. Next turn, depending on what we draw into, maybe we get Arrow and we can force all of their cards here. Maybe we get Shang-Chi and we can take out that card in mid. I don't know. It really depends on if we have anywhere close to initiative, and I don't think we will without playing into the Lechugia. So with us not being completely arrow-proof this game, this becomes tough. Because we can arrow here, but the issue becomes this. So if they have an arrow of their own, if they have an Arnim Zola, this does not win it for us. So it depends on what they drew, what they have. A Taskmaster is not going to do it, but a couple of the other common play lines in this deck would. We're going to risk it. We're going to risk it. Hope they play into the... Oh, wait. The Taskmaster and the Titania, the Ebony Maw. The Ebony Maw. We're going to yank those two into mid. We are going to be able to overpower Wolo for the 4 cubes with the small power in the left lane, the small power in the right lane. But with the slight tech change that was added in with the arrow, it gives us that flexibility for some of those games where we just absolutely can't overpower what they have. And so we have to rely on stacking. And so we will absolutely take it. That is where we're going to go ahead and end this video. Overall, this list has been really phenomenal. So while recording, we had a 75% win rate, and it wasn't all against just hodgepodge decks. One of the losses was a 50-50, so that really could have easily went either way in that scenario. And overall, I think the changes have really improved upon the Moon Girl Zoo, and I'm really enjoying this archetype. And so overall, fantastic list. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.